harmonize it. Climb into position with synchronized things. Live from outer ghetto we maximize it. Sound of the groove Armada with super styling. One time lyrics, them a stick on your mind. Proper bass line, I go proper and provide. My MC super, I go dapper on the ride. Rise and amplify, 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 rise and amplify. Rise and amplify, 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 rise and amplify in memory.
Well, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I was promised a cordless mic, and look what I'm dragging behind me. So if I suddenly stop here, I've been promised there's a man feverishly unwinding me, or winding me up. Let me just hang on, I need to turn around. How are you? Woo! Look, thank you so much for being here today, for giving us your time, especially on a Sunday. But hey, look where we are, this magnificent theatre in the Civic, to be at the official launch of the ACT Party Campaign 2023. My name is Leah Parnapa, and I'm not going to take up too much of your time because I know who you have come here to see this afternoon. But looking out at your faces, it makes me think that, like me, you want change, real change. Do you? So you want real change? These are questions that you can yell out the answer to. Well, look, real change means easing the pressure on the rising cost of living, ending the divisive race-based policies, cutting cutting wasteful spending and stopping the criminals that are targeting hard-working, law-abiding Kiwis. And it's not as simple as swapping out one Chris for another Chris, or a red tie for a blue tie. It is going to take courage. It is going to take vision. It is going to take fresh ideas for real change. And you know what? I think we all want the same thing. New Zealand to be productive, united, economically stable, and a place that we want to stay and grow, bring up our families, and not just survive, but thrive. And as the late, great Nelson Mandela said, it always seems impossible until it's done. And by the way, if he was alive, he would Party Vote Act. Print that, media. Look, as I said, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. Again, I am so happy to see you all here today. Welcome to you all, ladies and gentlemen. The man himself will be joining us very shortly. But for now, I want you to sit back and relax, and once again, welcome to the official launch of the ACT Party Campaign 2023.
Now, for a lot of people, it's bittersweet. We have done well, and all those of you who have helped the ACT Party should be so proud. But it's also true that the result we have overall tonight is not good for New Zealand. And for ACT, this is just a stepping stone to building a platform and an agenda for real reform that will make New Zealand a better place. So this is not the end. This is not our 2020 campaign election night party. This is our 2023 election campaign launch.
ACT believes Kiwis deserve better.
We need fresh thinking.
It's wrong to divide people by race. Only ACT has a plan to stop the waste and get the money where it's needed the most.
I firmly believe our child welfare system should be 100% colourblind.
And it's wrong, and the ACT Party stands against punitive taxes that pick on people just because we can take their money. That is the opposite of what we tell young New Zealanders, and it's the opposite of the values that should be in our tax code. It's the opposite of the values that will make this country a prosperous and joyful place to live. It's picking on people because you can.
What started as the Association of Consumers and Taxpayers has now become a movement of values that I don't think the old legacy parties can match. It's been an incredible journey, and I can't wait to bring even more people with us, people who share our values.
People who work hard should be rewarded. The rights of victims come before criminals. We should live within our means. Disagree agreeably, treat everyone equally and with respect, and believe in better. That's what real change really means.
I don't give a damn what your culture or skin colour is, what ethnic group you belong to. If you do the crime, you face the consequences of it. We are all equal under this law.
Let's invest in roads, bridges and power and actually build the houses we need.
Pay our best and brightest more. Build more housing and put more money in your back pocket.
Only ACT in government will end the division, stop co-governance, crack down on crime, cut the wasteful spending and invest in New Zealand, where it matters.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding and give a warm welcome to David Seymour.
Thank you very much for being here, for participating in our democracy, and for participating in ACT's largest ever gathering, reflecting our strongest campaign performance, which in turn can only reflect what is happening in this country. A movement for real change. Today we set out on the last leg of a long journey up to this place. In 4 short weeks, each of us here will have helped elect a new parliament, with ACT on course to be a larger part of it than at any time in history. And out of that parliament may well come a new government if you vote for it. And out of that new government can come a new direction for our country, a strong, dynamic partnership for change. Again, if you vote for it. That is what we want. That is what this country needs. And today I'd like to talk about what that direction could look like from a special point of view. Statistics New Zealand tell us that about 165 children will be born in New Zealand today. I'd like to talk about the country our next government will build from the point of view of a kid born in New Zealand today. Now go with me here. Close your eyes and picture that tiny baby. All you know is that they will be a Kiwi. They might be born rich or poor, boy or girl. They might be born in the centre of downtown Auckland here or on the outskirts of Lumsden. They might be Māori, Pacifica, South Asian, East Asian, African, Middle Eastern or European. But most likely, they'll be from multiple backgrounds. They might be long planned and desperately wanted, or affected by methamphetamine they never chose. They might even be born in another country, set to immigrate here one day. Now open your eyes, and no matter who you saw, a few things are universal. Sure, we can't predict their taste in art, music, and culture. We don't know if they'll be spectacularly talented or what talents they will have. We don't know if they'll be a workaholic or family-focused. They could be the life of the party or just want to spend their life in the garden. Those and other things we don't know. But here's what we do know about a kid born in New Zealand today. No matter who her parents are, what she looks like, or how she thinks, there are some universal truths. We know she'll live in a joined-up global economy where the primary currency is knowledge. We know that what she knows will matter more than it ever has before, so her education must be the best. And we know she'll need to work, and the more variety and dollars she gets from an hour of work, the better her life will be. We know she'll need somewhere to live, and owning her own home would give her stability and purpose, security and safety. We know that people can be awful to another, and being safe from thugs and bullies, whether they're ram raiders at the local dairy or foreign powers across the ocean, is a non-negotiable, because all other dreams depend on physical safety first. And we know that they'll want to be free from discrimination. Is this a protest? Is this guy trying to protest? Sir, we've been hoping for protesters for a long time. For many years, protesters have ignored the ACT Party, and I think you're proving just how fast ACT is growing. So thank you, sir, for confirming that ACT is the fastest growing political movement. And the fact that people are coming along to protest like you, sir, are actually proving just how successful and effective ACT is being. That's right. And I'll tell you something else, sir. You can try and shout us down in here. You can try and shout us down on Twitter. You can try and shout us down on the mainstream media. But you will never... Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, sir, you can't have a very good argument if you have to do it that way. It's time for you to leave, sir. Sir, let me carry on. We're just going to ignore you now. You've had your fun, and thank you very much for coming. It's time for you to move on. But I can tell you that people will want to be free from discrimination. They'll want to be free from discrimination based on things that she can't change about herself. She'll want to be treated as a person alike in dignity with all others, no matter her gender, her race, religion, or sexuality. She'll want to be part of a country that knows who it is and where it's going, that has hope and sounds proudly on the stage, trading value for value and getting stronger together with their friends around the world. They'll want political leaders who truly listen, who are accountable, and most of all, they'll demand leaders who start from a firm grounding in values, who then propose better alternatives based on those values and carry out their plans with integrity. The question at this election is, who do you trust with that commitment to ensure that every New Zealander, however and to whomever they're born, has a fair choice and chance at life? Who do you trust to keep their promise and do not just do what is popular for them, but do what is right? And who do you trust? Who do you trust with the commitment to improve our country, not just for the next 3 years, but for the next generation, so that one day, far into the future, she can look back and say, how fortunate I was to be born in New Zealand. You know, the journey of a kid born in New Zealand today starts with the kind of education she will get. And there are just two basic directions on offer. There's the track we're on now, and there's the path of real change. You know, the song says that today's children will learn much more than I'll ever know. But the track we're on right now means parents might be right, that their kids for the first time will know less than the previous generation. The OECD has been testing what 15-year-olds know and can do for 23 years. And it's a hard truth that in maths, in science, in reading, the average 15-year-old today is behind the average 15-year-old a generation ago. With the track we're on now, it will get much worse. The Ministry of Education is out of control. You know, it's grown by 60% in 6 years, and every principal I meet says it makes their job harder, not easier. Teachers who dreamed of changing children's lives tell me they really do tick boxes instead of helping kids. All they do is tick boxes for the Ministry of Education when they could be changing those kids' lives. You see, teachers are scared by difficult truths or tough conversations. In fact, they're not scared at all, they relish them. And as an aside, yes, that's why so many of them are voting for ACT this time, because the ministry is busy taking academic knowledge out of the curriculum and instead dialing up the social engineering by using it to push the most divisive possible reading of the treaty and science and common sense. The bureaucracy is busy forcing child-centred education done in modern learning environments on schools. You know, the 3 classrooms joined together with 3 teachers, 100 kids and lots of beanbags. The idea is that if kids play long enough, they'll discover the knowledge of humanity all by themselves. It's no wonder kids don't go, and when they work out that they can do their own child-centred education in their bedroom on YouTube. And while the ministry push fad after fad on schools, they refuse to measure results. Do you notice how the mediocre are appalled by the idea of accountability? Well, the most important number in New Zealand this week is one we'll never know, and it's how many kids went to school today. We'll never know because government fails to collect attendance data from hundreds of schools every term. What we do know is that attendance rates are in free fall for schools, and we have the data for, and we can guess that the ones that don't report their data are even worse. It's another hard truth. I want to say to that gentleman and anyone like him, he can do his best to disrupt the democratic process. He can try to shout us down in here. They can try to shout us down on social media or in mainstream media, but they will never deflect us from our course of standing up for what's right and making New Zealand the country that people deserve. You go, sir, you go, because you will not stop us from making this country the country that New Zealanders deserve. Antisocial behaviour by people with nothing better to say and nothing better to do has no future in this country. The ACT Party and its values have the future of this country at its heart. I thank you all as this disturbance dies down and we talk about this kid born in New Zealand. You know, the hard truth is... Thank you. Thank you. You know, the hard truth is that we've been in a state of decline under both Labor and National for 20 years. Labor didn't start this decline, but their toxic mix of ideology and incompetence sure has accelerated the decline. So if that's the track we're on, what is the real change that we stand for? Real change in education looks like setting the standards and getting out of the way. It means measuring attendance at every school and publishing the numbers every day. Thank you. It means analysing those numbers to understand which kids don't attend and why. It's insane that this isn't being done now, but it isn't. The curriculum should be knowledge-rich. Knowledge that one generation seeks to pass to the next should make up our curriculum. And that knowledge should be assessed using universal exams. Then the government should do something else as well. It should treat educators like they're the most important profession for our country's long-term future. Because I firmly believe they are. The next government should be trusting those educators and then getting out of the way. Stop micromanaging the shape of their classrooms. Stop politicising what they teach while ignoring what they achieve. If all that sounds familiar, that is how charter schools worked, and the same principles should apply to all schools. Treat the profession with respect, get them out of the way, and let them achieve their standards. Thank you. Thank you. The result for a kid born today is an old-fashioned Labor version of the Kiwi dream. It's the simple idea that a kid born in New Zealand today, whether they're rich or poor, boy or girl, Māori or Pākehā, town or country, they have that chance to be whomever they want to be. They can go from a rural school, a rural area school anywhere in New Zealand, to medical school or the best university in the year. When that option is open to our kid born today, no matter who she is, our work in education will be done. But what happens next? What happens next when a kid born today goes to work? She needs to have a good paying job that's interesting and connected to opportunity. Will that job support first world living standards? The track New Zealand's on says it won't. Productivity growth in New Zealand has sadly been pathetic. We're slowly getting poorer compared with the countries we like to compare ourselves with. When John Key was elected, the median Australian wage was 11 grand more than here. By the time Jacinda Ardern was elected, 9 years later, it was $17,000. Today, the gap in the median wage with Australia is $23,000 a year. My friends, isn't this why we're here? To tell the hard truths that we're not just stagnating, we're falling behind. But more importantly, we're here to offer hope that we in ACT know how to stop the decline. The latest figures from Treasury showed last week that Labor has no strategy beyond borrow and hope. The truth is, this government doesn't have a taxing problem, it has a spending problem. And the media lambasts the National Party saying their taxes aren't big enough. But the National Party turn around and promise, oh no, we will tax more. New Zealanders need the next government to cut the waste, and that's why New Zealand needs ACT in that next government. You know, people say there's a cost of living crisis, and that's true, but it's not the whole picture. Really, there's a productivity crisis. You see, every country's had inflation to some extent in recent years, but it's different here. It's harder here because prices were high and wages were low before the latest bout of inflation took off. The simple truth is we have a government that spends too much, and after 6 years of Grant Robertson relentlessly doing less with more year after year, families and businesses are left having to do more with less. Our government, thank you, our government spends 30% more per person than it did 6 years ago. 30%. And I simply ask you this, does anyone in their right mind believe that we've got fair value for it? I've already covered that we don't have more kids going to school learning more. We have the opposite. It's not easier to get into a GP or have an operation, it's harder. The streets aren't safer, and neither are the roads. It's time for the government to do more with less so families and businesses can breathe again. That is why we need real change for our economy. Thank you. The Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment has 64% more people than 6 years ago. But nobody in business believes it's easier to do business, innovate or employ people than it was back then. In fact, the opposite. The track we're on leads to more red tape and regulation every year, and it's destroying who we are as a country. We have an image of ourselves as a can-do Kiwi with a number 8 wire in hand. When we don't have enough money, we just have to think like Sir Ernest Rutherford said. Well, it's a wonderful story, but is it really true anymore? The truth is we spend more and more time complying and less time producing. The cost of regulation means too many projects don't go ahead. And when projects don't go ahead, there's less examples of success for people to see and aspire to. The avalanche of red tape and regulation that falls on every sector, from farming to finance and construction to education, isn't just bad for the economy. It's deadly to the vibrancy of our culture. But we will face it together, and we will fix it with proper regulatory responsibility to reignite the Kiwi passion for entrepreneurship, innovation, and making ourselves a wealthier society. Real change for the economy means we're going to stop wasteful spending. No ifs, no buts, and no excuses. Yes, the sums need to add up, but even more important is that our principles are correct. We are going to be your voice, the association of consumers and hard-working taxpayers in a future government, and we will never forget it. ACT's fully costed alternative budget would cut $9 billion of wasteful spending without touching a single nurse, teacher, doctor, cop, or any frontline service in this country. It means 15,000 public servants, taking us to the 47,000 we had in 2017 before Labor's hiring spree. And by the way, people in the public service are voting ACT in the hope we'll fire the guy in the next cubicle who they believe needs to go. Some of the best support for these changes come from people who see the waste from the inside. And people say, oh, but if you fire 15,000 people, they won't find another job. The facts are that every day in New Zealand, 3,000 people leave one job and go to another. So 15,000 people finding a new job, that's 5 days worth of hiring. We'll then set a contract between the minister and the chief executive of each department, so there's actual accountability for performance. If you're in charge of the Ministry of Social Development, it should matter how many people get off a benefit and into employment. It should affect your salary just like it affects all of our teachers and every manager in any other business. We'll also bring the people responsible for policing red tape and regulation under one roof, with a minister dedicated to ensuring that the rules are solving an actual problem and have benefits exceeding their costs. It's amazing that nobody in government has that job, but right now nobody has that job in government, and all of us carry the cost of striving under the latest layer of red tape and regulation that was politically expedient, but economically expensive. And besides checking new rules, this new minister will go through the existing rules and regulations, and here's something novel: delete those that don't make sense so people can get off complying and get back to producing. That's real change, worth valuing, and most importantly right now, worth voting for. We can do more, though, to make sure that a kid born in New Zealand today is part of a vibrant economy. It means finding better ways to fund and finance infrastructure than government maxing out its credit card. Today, you can literally die waiting for infrastructure to be built in New Zealand. For example, nearly a whole generation of Aucklanders have been and gone waiting for a second harbour crossing, and we don't even have a certain design yet. Instead, a strong, dynamic government of change with ACT at its heart will make a regional deal with each part of New Zealand, laying out the wish list of infrastructure for the region, and then, instead of saying we can't afford it, asking how we can afford it with tolls and targeted rates, public-private partnerships with foreign and local private investors, along with GST sharing by central government, on the table to get stuff built so we can actually be a real growing up country with real roads again. We can make this country a magnet again for foreign investment, and we need it. Not a nanny state culture that just breeds frustration, stagnation, and traffic congestion. The real change we could have would deliver a dynamic economy where a kid born in New Zealand today gets a high-paying, interesting job right here in New Zealand. And here's my bottom line about bottom lines. There is no more pressing priority, no more urgent need than fixing our economy. And my commitment to you, our commitment to the people of New Zealand is this: if you trust us by putting us at the heart of the next government, we will never stop working for you, working to repair and reform our economy and revitalise the growth we need for that kid born in New Zealand today. Now, I mentioned earlier that we'd want any child born in New Zealand today to own her own home, or even better, build her own home. This isn't because it's some wise investment choice, although it is. More importantly, it's because owning a home gives you a stake in our community. More than being the smart thing to do, it's the right thing to do. And as with so much else, Labor talked a good game when it came to building houses, but as ever, you have to read the small print. When they say they want to create more homes, look out. What they mean is they want more people in social housing. That's why homeowners and landlords and commercial property owners have been clobbered by the perfect storm of interest rises and ever-increasing interest deductibility charges. Well, we say we want better for our children and they deserve better. These changes aren't a tax on homeowners so much as they are raids on aspiration. I don't know about you, But I want any Kiwi child to have every ladder of opportunity she can to believe in better. And that is why ACT and a strong, united government of real change will ensure that we replace the Resource Management Act. Our party has done the legwork to comprehensively overhaul resource management law based on property rights. It's ready to go in our paper, Building and Conserving Nature, and before anybody asks, yes, Simon Court always shows you his working. Brooke van Velden got every party in Parliament, bar Labour, to vote for GST sharing on construction with the local council. That's an idea whose time has come. Councils need the means and incentive to let more homes be built. And then we'd boost innovation by saying you can bring in more affordable, innovative building materials and techniques, skipping council inspection, if and only if you can guarantee the workmanship with private insurance. That's the kind of real change we need to get more homes built for the next generation and the ones beyond. But there's something about that home that must be in a pristine environment from one generation to the next. It's another hard truth that we have had Labour, supported by New Zealand First and the Greens, for years, and their environmental policies for longer. And yet, emissions fall no faster than they had the previous decade. Extreme weather continues, and our beaches remain awash with raw sewage only kilometres from where we are right now. The real crisis for our environment is we have too many politicians on all sides who would rather say what they are told is the right thing rather than do the right things to ensure we tread lightly on the earth and pass our inheritance with care. It's time for a fresh approach. And as a matter of principle, we need to do more to work with landowners, not dictate to them from some office in Wellington. Ironically enough, the PR speak about sustainable development is, well, unsustainable in itself. Instead, let's adopt an approach based on innovation, incentives, ingenuity to protect our precious environment, not the gloom and the gloom of the Greens' rhetoric. Instead, let's accept that New Zealand's farmers, best represented by the formidable figures of Mark Cameron and Andrew Hoggard, are the best custodians of the land they tend. No one understands the rural environment better than the people who own it and look after it for their livelihood. Thank you. A party vote for ACT ensures it will be Andrew and Mark's voices, not the green mulch of Chloe Swarbrick and James Shaw, that charts our future course on conservation. For the future of farming, the backbone of New Zealand, let's make it happen. But there's no more fundamental commitment that we have to a kid born in New Zealand today than ensuring their safety and security. It really is that simple. As an electorate MP here in Auckland, I meet good people who contribute every day in and out of our communities. Dairy and convenience workers, store owners who work long hours for little pay, often their family lives on site. And many times good families have risked it all for a better life in New Zealand start to wonder which store will be robbed next. Will it be theirs? Will weapons be used? And what will happen if they escalate and fight back? Will anyone come to help? Does anyone in authority actually care about them? Many feel the answer is no, so they fortify their stores with cages like they're living in Harlem, even though they're in Hamilton, like our candidate Ash Palmer, who's standing for ACT because he's had enough of his shops being beaten down by thugs and bullies and the state not standing up to them on his behalf. Thank you. You see, people like Ash will tell you the country they love is being run by a government that's let them down. It's not so much that Labor doesn't take the gang seriously. The problem, you see, is the criminals don't take Labor seriously. And that's why, under the formidable figure of Nicole McKee, we've set out a clear, actionable plan that will bring in gang control orders and hit them where it hurts, in their pockets. We'll have youth infringement notices to get young offenders off the streets and into proper rehabilitation. We'll reintroduce 3 strikes and abolish the mad target that if only we let more people out of prison, somehow they'll be kinder to us, take them off the ankle bracelet and put them back in prison where they belong. And I say to you as clearly as anyone can, when a government cannot ensure the basic safety and security of its citizens, it has lost the ability to govern. It has lost the right to lead, and it's time for a new government, secure in its principles, ready to take charge from day one, and which is less worried about right and left than what is right and wrong. In short, law and order too. It's time, for the sake of a kid born in this country today, for real change based on the values that people who follow the law have rights and people who victimise them deserve consequences. But perhaps more than anything, a child born today needs the dignity of being treated the same, no matter who she is. She should be a person who, regardless of race or religion or sexuality, is treated the same. But the track we're on is where your identity can matter more than your common humanity. The scourge of identity politics means a person can be responsible for things that someone else did 200 years ago, but not something that they did last week. You know, enlightenment values, which is a thoughtful person's way of saying kindness, by the way, tell us that we're bound by universal truths and common humanity that gives us universal human rights. But the track we're on is moving faster away from those timeless values every year. It's a worldwide trend, but our local version of the scourge of identity politics revolves around our treaty. We can all read what it says, but the problem is what the treaty means. Now, there are 3 worthwhile goals, I believe, in New Zealand race relations. One is to cherish the Maori language and culture, but actually to cherish them all. And a hint, it's more effective not to force it on people. For example, I love to speak a bit of Te Reo Māori, especially this week, as you might have noticed. But would I feel the same way if it were mandated? And should I be frowned upon if I did not learn it? No. The way to turn a treasure into a form of torture is to impose it on people by force. And perhaps, with the very best of intentions, to write division into law. We want to celebrate the wide range of language and cultures that a kid born today might have, the richest of culture that Ash's or Karen's or Laura's kids have in their hearts. Not one to the detriment of others, but all. The time has come for us to have the courage to say enough and no more. The second goal that I think we should all share is to put wrong the rights of the past. As I said in my speech at Waitangi this year, kia whakatika ngā hapa o mua. And the third is to make sure that 2 babies born side by side in the same hospital have the same choices and chances in life, no matter their background. We are told the only way to reach these 3 goals is through a treaty as a partnership. We're told that it must be a partnership between races, but there's 2 problems with that. Number one, that's not treated by what the treaty says, nor the events surrounding its signing. Instead, the partnership between races is just a meaning that's been nurtured by a small group of lawyers, public servants, and iwi leaders. In short, most of us were never asked. But number 2, and this is a more important reason, no society in history has ever succeeded based on treating people differently by race. In other words, it does not work. The simple truth is, and I know it is not always easy or popular, but every good political movement in recent centuries has been based on breaking down barriers on identity and celebrating our common humanity. The track we're on today is one where the kid in our story really can be treated differently, depending on how you pictured her at the beginning. Think about that for a moment. Having the right to be consulted on water rights or resource management, taking management and governance positions in public organisations, or even getting medical treatments can depend on ancestry, on ways of thinking that we should have left behind generations ago as we join universal human rights and look past our superficial differences to the commonality that we all have within. The real change we could have starts with an honest, healthy debate about our future. It involves everyone equally, whether your family arrived 15 generations ago or one. We all matter. We all have a stake in the future of this country, and we all deserve a change in how our constitutional arrangements evolve. Only one party stands on this principle of one Kiwi, one vote, and it's your vote that can ensure the message is taken to the heart of the next government we form. In Australia, they're debating a constitutional change, introducing the voice to their federal parliament. And it could hardly be more striking that they will have a nationwide vote on a constitutional question on October 14, the same day that we go to the polls to elect a new parliament. That's why ACT says, and only ACT says, this country deserves a say on what the treaty means, and it turns out a majority of New Zealanders agree. Parliament should define the principles of the treaty that it first floated in the Treaty of Waitangi 5 decades ago. It should be a fulsome, free process that involves everybody affected. Then the people should have a chance to ratify the principles in a nationwide referendum, because it's everybody's country and everybody should have a say in how its constitutional arrangements evolve and develop. And with those principles defined, we should halt race-based laws. We should remove the discrimination inherent in a Māori Health Authority, 3 Waters and the Natural and Built Environments Act. The public service should be instructed by legislation if necessary to serve the democratically elected government of the day without fear nor favour nor racial discrimination. And let us not be cowed by the crowd for whom the answer to everything is because colonialism or you're racist. That in itself is not the answer to the injustice or inequality we face. The injustice, thank you. The injustice is telling kids from the cradle to the grave that they're either victim or oppressor, and there's nothing they can do about it. My friends, I say to you today, that isn't just rubbish, it's reprehensible. Where people are disadvantaged, let's focus on ending the disadvantage rather than focusing relentlessly on their identity. Thank you. Getting our identity right may matter to a child born today more than anything else, because the track we're currently on, is set to be one where her identity matters more than her humanity, and that is simply wrong. The real change we need is such that no matter who she is, she has the same right to be the same thing. Black or white, gay or straight, Māori or non-Māori, we are all human and all equal in having the same rights and duties. An equal share. Thank you. It means an equal share, 1/5 of the fantastic opportunity this country has to offer, or, as the treaty itself says, ngā tikanga katoa rite tahi, the same rights and duties promised by the treaty. Lastly, you would have heard a little bit in the news media and elsewhere about the candidates of ACT that you can't vote for. And I say, if only they talked a little bit more about those ACT candidates you can vote for, because they are fantastic. I'm so proud of the team of Kiwis from all walks of life coming together under the ACT banner to lead and represent in Parliament. Our number 20 candidate, Leo Foley. Leo Foley is a lawyer from the North Shore and our candidate for Northcote, and he'd make an outstanding MP. Zane Cousins, our candidate for Taupo, an award-winning real estate agent, a former territorial in the New Zealand Defence Force, an all-round nice guy. Christine Young. Christine Young is a small business owner, runs her own school teaching taekwondo. Our candidate for Tauranga will make a fantastic Member of Parliament. Chris Bailey, a returning ACT MP, a former cop, a former teacher, a publican, and our spokesperson for police and education. Welcome, Chris. Rob Douglas, he's got the names, he's got the DNA, he's a property developer from Hawke's Bay and our candidate for Tuki Tuki. Welcome on up. He's been rapidly promoted up through the ranks in the New Zealand Defence Force. He's served his country all over the world and he's coming to serve you in New Zealand's Parliament. Being part of the democracy he's stood up to defend, Ben Harvey, our candidate for Selwyn. Another returning ACT MP and long-time loyal ACT member, Tony Severin, our spokesperson for Corrections and Disability. Welcome, Tony. I spoke earlier about Ash Palmer, a business owner, a father and a victim of too much of the crime and violence that's occurred in our country lately. He's taking the fight back on behalf of the victims of violence up and down this country. Welcome up, Ash Palmer. A patent attorney, an IP lawyer, a mum of one and very soon to be two, a genuine star we can't wait to have in Parliament, Antonia Motkova. He's been a dairy farmer and now he's a builder. He's built more homes than the Labour Party in the last 6 years. Our candidate for Bay of Plenty, Cameron Luxton. She's a former pharmacy technician. She runs her own business. She hails from Christchurch, where she's standing for Banks Peninsula. Number 10 on our list, Laura Trask. She's been a successful broadcaster. She's been at the top of her game as a PhD in science. She's been a Member of Parliament for 6 years before, and she is coming back to be an ACT MP as someone who's built a successful exporting and manufacturing business. I couldn't be prouder to have Paramjit Parmar. He's one of only 2 engineers in Parliament. He's the person that's coming to Parliament to sort out our resource management law, our transport and local government with the practical approach that only an engineer can bring, the indefatigable Simon Court. He's the authentic voice of rural New Zealand, the man you can trust to represent the farmers, a Ruawai dairy farmer himself, and absolutely killing it on social media every day, Mark Cameron. Thank you very much. And then there's our number 7, perhaps one of the bravest people in our Parliament, somebody who today is bravely fighting a minor illness and could not be here. But I know she'd appreciate your applause for the wonderful Karen Chua, number 7 on our list. Oh, she's here! Well, they told me that she was too sick to be here, but everything I just said, Karen, is true. One of the bravest people in our caucus in our Parliament. Welcome, Karen Chua. A former president of Federated Farmers and critically set to be Parliament's second economist, because we really need a few more down there, Andrew Hoggard, our candidate for Rangatiki and another practising dairy farmer. The pocket rocket returning from Sydney to his native Southland, number 4 on our list and our candidate for the Southland electorate, bringing his corporate experience, ready to lead and govern on day one, is Todd Stevenson. And the MP that gangs fear the most, the person that you really don't want as the Minister of Justice if you're a criminal. And that is Nicole McKee. Come on up. And finally, my friend, long-term colleague and collaborator, Deputy Leader, economist and the next MP for Tamaki, please welcome ex-Deputy Brooke van Velden. You know, if you've got a little bit of spare time in the next 4 weeks, go out and lend a Brooke a hand in Tamaki. No candidate deserves it more. These are the people that you can vote for. Kiwis from all walks of life coming under the values and banner of the ACT Party to bring real change to this country. But in the end, this election does not come down to one party in government's lamentable track record or that party's lack of spreadsheets. The question is, who do you trust with ensuring your voice is heard at the top table in the next government? And this I want to say to the people watching at home. Who do you believe shares your commitment to the idea that we and our children deserve better than this, that they deserve more than more of the same? The moral of the story is we can't afford the track we're on. We can't afford another round of swapping red for blue and hoping for the best while the politicians do their worst. It is time for real change, and if you value it, you have to vote for it. People in the media ask about my red lines in any future government, you may have noticed. Well, I'm far more concerned about the red ink that we all face as a country. Starting with our economy, New Zealand needs a real change. So if you want a voice to hold them all accountable and keep their word, only a party vote for ACT will do. If you think an honest conversation about co-governance is long overdue, only a party vote for ACT can do it. And if you want to hit the gangs where it hurts, party vote ACT. In short, thank you. In short, if you want to change political parties, you have plenty of options. But if you want real change in the direction of our country, a government that shares your values, your voice, and your hopes, there is really only one credible option. Stand with me, stand with us, and party vote ACT. Thank you very much for being here today. Thank you. Thank you.